Friends, Americans, countrymen, lend me your ears. We're here to talk about something truly riveting: the US economy. And no, I'm not joking. It's about as exciting as watching paint dry, but significantly more important. Especially when we're talking about the economic policies of one Donald J. Trump. Now, Trump promised us the moon. He pledged to make America great again with a booming economy, low unemployment, and wages shooting up faster than a toupee in a hurricane. His recipe for this economic miracle? A potent cocktail of tax cuts, deregulation, and a healthy dose of protectionism. Sounds simple, right? Like a microwave dinner for economic prosperity. But as we all know, microwave meals rarely live up to the picture on the box. So let's pop this economic TV dinner under the microscope and see if it's a recipe for success or a recipe for disaster. Buckle up, folks, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. Trump's economic plan rested on two main pillars: tax cuts, particularly for corporations, and slashing regulations. The idea was simple: put more money in the pockets of businesses and individuals, and they'll invest, spend, and create jobs. It's trickle-down economics, baby, an old classic like bell-bottoms or the Macarena.
But here's the thing about trickle-down economics: it's like hoping that if you water your neighbor's lawn enough, some of it will magically seep into your own parched grass. It's not exactly a foolproof plan. Critics argue that tax cuts primarily benefit the wealthy, who are more likely to hoard their newfound wealth than invest it in ways that create jobs.
And what about deregulation? Well, it depends on who you ask. Proponents argue that it frees businesses from burdensome red tape, unleashing innovation and growth. Opponents counter that regulations are there for a reason: to protect workers, consumers, and the environment. They argue that deregulation is like removing the guardrails on a roller coaster. Sure, it might be a wilder ride, but there's a higher chance of someone getting hurt.
So, did Trump's economic policies deliver the promised economic boom? Well, that's a question for another section, folks. Keep those browsers scrolling.
One of Trump's signature economic moves was his love affair with tariffs. He slapped them on goods from China, Mexico, Europe, you name it. It was like a global trade war with tariffs as the weapon of choice.
Trump argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. He claimed that other countries were taking advantage of the U.S., and it was time to fight back. He even went so far as to say that trade wars are easy to win.
But here's the thing about trade wars. They're about as easy to win as a staring contest with a statue. They're costly, disruptive, and often backfire spectacularly. Tariffs raise prices for consumers, hurt American businesses that rely on imported goods, and invite retaliation from other countries.
So, did Trump's tariff tirade make America great again? Or did it just make everything more expensive? Stay tuned to find out.
Trump's stance on immigration was clear: build a wall, ban Muslims, and crack down on undocumented immigrants. He argued that immigrants were stealing American jobs, driving down wages, and straining social services.
But economists generally agree that immigration, both legal and illegal, has a net positive impact on the economy. Immigrants fill labor shortages, start businesses, and contribute to economic growth. Restricting immigration can actually lead to labor shortages, higher wages, which can contribute to inflation, and slower economic growth.
However, the relationship between immigration and inflation is complex. While immigrants can contribute to economic growth, a sudden influx of immigrants can potentially put upward pressure on housing and other resources in specific areas, potentially leading to localized price increases.
So, did Trump's immigration policies help or hurt the economy? The answer, as with most things in economics, is it's complicated.
Now, let's talk about an issue that's near and dear to many Americans' hearts and wallets: the ever-increasing cost of living. From skyrocketing rents to exorbitant healthcare costs, it feels like everything is getting more expensive by the day.
Some Democrats have proposed rent control and price caps on essential goods and services as a way to combat these rising costs. The idea is to make these necessities more affordable for everyday Americans.
However, price controls are a controversial topic. While they can provide short-term relief for consumers, they can also lead to shortages, black markets, and reduced quality of goods and services.
So, are price controls the answer to our economic woes, or are they a well-intentioned but ultimately misguided policy? Let's dive into the historical archives for some clues.
Remember Richard Nixon? Besides the whole Watergate scandal, he's also known for implementing wage and price controls in the 1970s to combat inflation. The result? A big fat economic headache.
Nixon's price controls led to shortages, long lines at gas stations, and a thriving black market for everything from gasoline to meat. It was a classic case of good intentions paving the road to economic hell.
The lesson here? Price controls are a bit like trying to fix a leaky faucet with duct tape. It might work temporarily, but it's likely to create even bigger problems in the long run. Now let's talk about the Federal Reserve, or as I like to call it, the economic equivalent of a tightrope walker. Their job is to keep the economy humming along at a sustainable pace, controlling inflation without stifling growth. It's a delicate balancing act, and one that they don't always get right. Trump, never one to shy away from criticizing, well, everyone, frequently took aim at the Fed, accusing them of keeping interest rates too high and hindering economic growth. He seemed to prefer a more hands-on approach, urging the Fed to cut rates and pump money into the economy. But meddling with the Fed's independence is a dangerous game. It can undermine their credibility and lead to economic instability. It's like trying to give driving instructions to a pilot while you're both in the air.
Section 8, Democrats versus Trump, a tale of two economic visions. When it comes to economics, Democrats and Trump have about as much in common as a lion and a zebra. Democrats generally favor a more active role for government in the economy, with policies like higher taxes on the wealthy, increased social spending, and stricter regulations.
Trump, on the other hand, championed a more laissez-faire approach, with tax cuts, deregulation, and a focus on boosting American businesses. He viewed government intervention as a hindrance to economic growth, like a speed bump on the road to prosperity. So, who's got the right approach? Well, that's a question that economists have been debating for decades. There's no easy answer, and the best approach likely lies somewhere in the middle.
Section 9. Can Trump's policies really save the US economy? Now, for the million-dollar question, did Trump's economic policies live up to the hype? Did they make America great again? Well, the answer is, as always, complicated. The US economy did experience a period of growth during Trump's presidency, with low unemployment and a booming stock market.
However, it's difficult to say how much of this was due to his policies and how much was due to other factors, such as the global economic recovery. Critics argue that Trump's policies primarily benefited the wealthy, while doing little to address income inequality or the plight of the working class. They also point to the ballooning national debt as evidence that his policies were unsustainable. Section 10. The Road Ahead, Navigating the Uncertain Economic Landscape. As we move beyond the Trump era, the U.S. economy faces a number of challenges, including rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Navigating these challenges will require a delicate touch, a deep understanding of economics, and perhaps most importantly, a healthy dose of common sense. Whether the U.S. can overcome these challenges and achieve lasting economic prosperity remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an interesting ride. Section 11, the final verdict, a comedian's take on Trump's economic legacy. So, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of Trump's economic policies and their potential impact. Was it as fun as a barrel of monkeys? Probably not. Was it informative? Hopefully. Ultimately, judging the success or failure of Trump's economic policies is a task best left to historians and economists. But as a comedian, I can say this: Trump's presidency was anything but boring. Whether you loved him or hated him, you can't deny that he kept us entertained. And in the often dry world of economics, that's got to count for something, right?